Hello everyone and welcome to What Culture Comics. I'm Josh, joined today by my friend Ewan Patterson.
Hello there.
Because Ewan, apparently there are some animation-related things in the works. HBO Max and Cartoon Network have announced a couple of new shows, including Batman Caped Crusader. Now, I want to know more about this, what's going on, who's involved. Please tell me the details.
Yeah, so you may recall from the other month we had those rumours that were doing the rounds. Kevin Smith had that cheeky little winky moment on his podcast where, he was asked about a Batman animated series sequel series, and he was like, oh, I know something's in the works. And lo and behold, something has been announced, although it doesn't look to be set in the same continuity as betas, because, obviously the DC animated universe, that's still actually undergoing a bit of a revival as of late. We've had, a few animated movies come out over the last couple of years, as well as a bunch of comics, but this new animated series they've announced today looks to be a brand new interpretation of The Dark Knight, and it's not just Bruce Timm who's involved. We've actually got Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams working as executive producers as well. It definitely feels as though with the announcement at the end of the year of the Gotham kind of PD TV show announcement, that Reeves is taking more of a kind of active role in building sort of, different Batman projects for Warner Brothers, which is exciting. But obviously the main takeaway right now is that Bruce Timm is involved. We got the announcement earlier today with some brand spanking new art that definitely kind of harkens back to the golden age of Batman, with the big, long, pointy ears. It very much reminds me more so of Timm's work when it was Batman's 75th anniversary, and he did the Strange Days short, which was kind of inspired by those golden age adventures where, it's very much noir influence. They mentioned here in the press release from J.J. Abrams that we are beyond excited to be working together to bring this character back to tell engrossing new stories in Gotham City. This series will be thrilling, cinematic, and evocative of Batman's noir roots, while diving deeper into the psychology of these iconic characters. We cannot wait to share this new world, which again pretty much confirms that this isn't going to be set in the DCAU, which some people might be a little bit upset about, but at the same time, brand new interpretation of Batman. And they're also, throughout this press release, talking and referring back to betas as being, the gold standard for Batman kind of adaptations.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they are not shy about, putting that Batman the Animated Series influence, front and center of this whole thing. I know that, when the rumors were going around, a month ago, whenever it was, when, like you said, Kevin Smith was tweeting about this stuff, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying that, you were a bit wary of them going back to the animated series anyway, if they were directly going to tie, a new series into that, because it might undo a lot of, the wider animated universe stuff. So this, at least as someone who's kind of an outsider, seems almost like the best of both worlds. You get this thing that's clearly heavily inspired by, Batman the Animated Series. You've got Bruce Timm back on board, but it's going to be distinctly its own thing. It's going to be this reimagining of the mythology and ultimately can stand on its own. I feel like, that's probably the right way to go, Yeah,
no, I totally agree. I feel as though it's one of those things where I'm like, I wish DC would give just one other hero a chance and give them their own cartoon series or whatever, and then Batman just keeps coming back. But hey, I'm a glutton for more Batman. I can always deal with more Batman, especially when Bruce Timm's involved, unless the project is called Batman the Killing Joke, which wasn't very good. The thing about this new project, though, is that we still know very little about it, despite today's announcement. We know obviously the big three that are involved behind the scenes and stuff, but we still don't know who's playing Batman. We still don't know what the main art style of the series is going to be either. The biggest indication we've gotten so far is that really stunning looking poster, and they mentioned as well in the press release that utilizing state-of-the-art animation techniques and technologies available, this powerful creative partnership will once again reinvent Batman and his iconic rogues gallery with sophisticated storytelling, nuanced characters, and intense action sequences, all set in a visually striking world. So again, we have no idea what this interpretation is going for, but if we are to use the poster as a solid foundation, it would definitely seem to me as though it will be kind of inspired by Bruce Timm's art style yet again, but with a more pronounced kind of noir tone to it. Obviously beat as. And then obviously later on, you know, when it kind of had the soft reboot into the new Batman Adventures, a lot of it was inspired by Art Deco kind of works, and very much, you know, that timeless idea of Gotham being, you know, a city of the 1940s but existing within that 90s context. Whereas this feels maybe like slightly more like it's going to be more historically grounded potentially with those influences, and especially, you know, we're talking about the comics that Matt Reeves said had inspired his upcoming Batman movie. You know, he pointed to works like Batman Ego, which was done by Darwyn Cooke, who was involved in the DC animated shows, and, you know, the kind of noirish tales that we can get from that. So again, it feels very much like it's up his alley, and I'm just excited to see what a full-blown kind of noir, psychologically focused Batman cartoon could look like.
Yeah, I mean, me too. You know, it seems like they're fully committing to it. You know, like all of the buzzwords that they've dropped in this press release so far seem very promising. You briefly touched upon Matt Reeves having his bat fingers and a lot of bat pies when it comes to, you know, this whole universe. It was interesting for me to see his name attached to this because obviously the Gotham City PD show that's in production, he's an executive producer on it, but that's directly tying into Robert Pattinson's Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman, the upcoming Batman movie that's coming out in 2022. But this presumably is a very different thing. So it's interesting that, you know, WB obviously has a lot of faith in Reeves as a, you know, producer and a creative figure, you know, and I feel like they're banking a lot on the Batman itself and the universe that's establishing becoming so well received that Reeves' name is going to be synonymous with this. You know, the more projects he's attached to in this realm, the more I just feel like they are betting a lot on him. They have a lot of confidence in him. And from the work that I've seen of his previously, that's not entirely undeserved, but it's clear that we're going to have Reeves' influence in the world of Batman around for the foreseeable future and into now a bunch of projects that don't seem to be directly related to the movie trilogy that he's apparently planning.
Yeah, WB don't do things with a half measure, do they? You know, obviously Zack Snyder was the architect of the DC Extended Universe, and then they've also kind of gone all in with J.J. Abrams and a bunch of new HBO TV shows coming out, you know, the rumored Justice League Dark stuff and Green Lantern or whatever. So, yeah, they definitely commit. They like something and they're like, just give us all of it, please, forever. And obviously, like, I totally agree with you. Matt Reeves is such an exciting filmmaker, and all indications from the Batman so far, whether it be the interviews he's done about the projects, the comics he's been hyping up. I mean, anyone who loves Batman Ego has impeccable taste, Josh Brown. But obviously the trailer too, I get the idea that he has a good grasp on this character and this world. And, you know, to have Timm, you know, a veteran of different Bat media kind of collaborating with him on this in particular is very exciting. But yeah, it wasn't the only cartoon show that DC announced today. We've also got an exciting Superman series that's going to basically focus on Lois Lane, Clark Kent, and Jimmy Olsen as young adults in Metropolis and in the Daily Planet, and I think this sounds really fun and exciting. It's called My Adventures with Superman, so it's slightly more, you know, family-oriented than the dark noirish tones of Caped Crusader. But again, I find it really exciting. Jack Quaid is going to voice Clark Kent. I think he was in The Boys, and Alice Lee will play Lois Lane. And Variety say here that the serialized coming-of-age story sees Superman build up his secret identity and embrace his role as the hero of Metropolis and perhaps the world, while Lois, now a star journalist, takes aspiring photographer Jimmy under her wing. All the while, Clark and Lois are falling in love, sharing adventures and taking down bad guys. I could do trailer voices for press releases, I think.
I think you should, you know, if you, God forbid, ever have to go to another profession, you might as well do that. Honestly, I didn't know anything about this before we started filming. You know, I didn't do the notes for this one, so I'm just jumping in from what you said. And when you were initially describing it, I honestly thought you were describing Superman the Shaggy years, where he was just going to be like in his, you know, college phase, just going around trying his luck and stuff. But it seems, you know, like a cool angle to approach, especially in animated form. You know, I'm not familiar. I don't know whether they've done this too many times in the past, but that sounds like, you know, like it's almost on the other end of the spectrum in comparison to this Batman show. But I love that all of these things now can coexist. You know, we don't have HBO Max over in the UK still. We don't know if we will ever actually have it. I don't think they've even announced whether or not it's coming to this territory.
It's terrible. It's like when they had the DC Universe service,
Yes.
and then they just didn't bring it to the UK. Like, oh, I would maybe like just a little crumb of that, maybe.
No.
Or maybe I don't. Maybe there are too many streaming services anyway. I can't deal with any more of it. As long as it releases at the same time.
Yeah.
On a service that I already have in my general grievous cloak of streaming services, I'll be fine.
Right, I guess that's the big question that I want to end on, We're in this position where we don't have this service, but, WB, DC, they're building it up. They spent the past year building it with new content. They've announced a bunch of new things. With the announcement of these two shows, obviously, Cartoon Network is still involved as well, but with the announcement of these two shows, combined with everything else they've announced, if we do eventually get HBO Max, is this a service, in this completely oversaturated industry of streaming services, is this something now that you would drop everything and pick up a subscription for?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I feel, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, Disney Plus, that's the go-to one I absolutely have to have for the new Star Wars and Marvel content. And then in that same vein, because I love DC, it's like, well, HBO Max does have all the DC goodness on there. And then I'm like, oh, I don't need Netflix, I don't need Prime. And then they'll announce a really cool creative partnership for those things, like Knives Out 2 or whatever. So I don't know, Josh Brown. It's too much. It's too many things. But at the same time, I'm just excited that we have more Batman, Bruce Timm goodness. And hopefully this leads to a bigger resurgence of DC animation going forward. Everyone's loved Harley Quinn. And these could hopefully indicate more of that kind of stuff coming back. And I just really want to see the days where Warner Brothers Animation was at their peak and, churning out banger after banger. And hopefully this could be the start of something good.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, 100%. I think, if HBO Max is going to be the service, it has to facilitate, resurgences like this. And hopefully it'll allow creators the playground to cut free a little bit more than they're used to on the networks and stuff. But I want to throw all of this out to you guys down in the comics. Down in the comics. That kind of makes sense.
Down in the comics? It's like a Batarang at the comic?
In the comics comments. Are you looking forward to these shows? Have you got HBO Max? Will they convince you to pick up the streaming service? And let us know what you think about Superman the Shagging Years. Anyway, until then, I've been Josh, joined today by Ewan. You can follow me on Twitter at JoshBroom with 2 O's. You can follow Ewan on Twitter at
Ewan Ruins Things.
And we will see you soon. Goodbye.
Oh no!